Hello, my name is S.K. Williams, and today is the 4th of July! Happy birthday, America! But more than that, it is the 250th anniversary of America! The birth of liberty against the conquest of the tyranny of kings, and specifically, the tyrant King George III. Of course, King George III wasn't really a tyrant. He was a reform-minded constitutional monarch. But we like to say he was a tyrant to justify the American Revolution, which was always a bit odd, because in today's world we say that there's no room for political violence, but then we celebrate political violence in the form of America's revolution. A revolution that, by the way, reshaped the world. A lot of Americans have this idea that the revolution only affected America, but it created 4 countries, including Canada and Jamaica. And it reformed British politics. It discredited the king, and the Whigs used it to further erode the authority of the monarchy. And then, of course, there's the long-term effects. We live in a world where we take for granted that democracy is the only legitimate form of government, and only duly elected people have authority. And even though Britain still has a monarchy, for example, the monarchy is very much a slave to Parliament. And Parliament itself is a good example of our democratic heritage, our democratic principles, because we used to have 2 functional houses of Parliament. We used to have the House of Lords and the House of Commons. All legislation would begin in the Commons and then go up to the Lords. But in the past, the Lords could revise laws or even refuse them. Today, the Lords cannot refuse any laws, and they can't revise the laws. They can only suggest revisions and send it back to the Commons, and their only real power is a power of delay. But they can't stop the Commons, and it's because the Lords are not democratically elected. What's more, just this year, we got rid of the last remaining hereditary peers, because they're not democratic, and thus there is no rational defense for them. America started this. Without America, there would be no justification for the French Revolution, or the other revolutions throughout the 19th century, or even for communism. All of it grew out of the Enlightenment ideals that were embodied by the American Revolution. And I personally don't think the Enlightenment brought enlightenment to the world. It just called itself that. And I don't think violent revolution is good, and I don't think that America's founders were justified in using political violence, since they were under a monarchy, and in a monarchy the only way you can have change is through violent revolution. None of that was true, and I really don't think America was founded on good principles, which is odd because conservatives who want rid of the progressivism of today want to take us back to the vision of the founding fathers and present the progressives as being an aberration, or perhaps even a return to monarchy, when the progressives are an outgrowth of the same thoughts. Returning us to the founding fathers' vision is just returning us to the root that progressivism grew out of. But nevertheless, we have this idea that we should, and many people who are Christian in America will think that America was founded on these deeply Christian principles, and that to be a Christian means to be a patriot, to support America's founding principles. They'll even go around saying, "No king but King Jesus," and pass that off as an American revolutionary battle cry. Of course, it wasn't an American revolutionary battle cry. It came from Oliver Cromwell and his New Model Army. But telling people that is like telling militant atheists they're wrong about history. Many of them will just say, "No, you're wrong, you're lying, you're some sort of libtard, you're a progressive, and you're not getting history right." But I am. We actually have documented evidence from before America existed that no king but King Jesus was from the New Model Army. And others would say that that doesn't matter. It was still used in the American Revolution, therefore it is an American revolutionary battle cry. Which isn't how things work. Because if I said, "Remember the Alamo" was a World War II battle cry, no one would believe me. They would think I'm daft. But if I pointed out that it actually was used by certain battalions in World War II, and used that to justify that it was a World War II era battle cry, I would still be seen as daft, because it obviously came from the Texas War of Independence from Mexico. No king but King Jesus did not originate in the American Revolution, even if the revolutionaries had used it. So it's not an American revolutionary battle cry. And incidentally, it wasn't used by the American revolutionaries at all. David Barton sort of just said they were. But it does point out that myth-making goes into it. A lot of people have this idea that being a Christian means standing for a constitutional republic and eschewing monarchy, because they actually think that it is a historical principle, that Christians have been anti-monarchist, that Christians have believed there's only one king, King Jesus, and all others should be rejected, and that evil kings corrupted this, claiming a divine right of kings in the Dark Ages to get absolute power, and that's not really true either. And that makes me rather ambivalent, because we don't really study the history. And yet we lionize political violence if it was done 200 years ago, and we pretend the men who did it were these morally pure, perfect people with no ulterior motives, when they all did have ulterior motives. And we want to go back to a system that created our problems in order to cure our systems. But that is life. Nevertheless, happy birthday, America, and one last. Happy birthday to me, for you see I was born on the 4th of July. I know, it's odd, isn't it? Nevertheless, I haven't much else to say, so I shall take my leave of you now. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.